Welcome to International Student Brief. The content of the briefing includes: Energizing South Carolina's black voters is crucial to Biden as campaign looks ahead to swing states. A new perk for some student loan borrowers, a 401k match. Japan to introduce 6-month residency visa for digital nomads. Sumitomo Mitsui Trust expands assets abroad on Middle East mandates. Government to provide aid to refugees returning to Ukraine from abroad. Energizing South Carolina's black voters is crucial to Biden as campaign looks ahead to swing states. Associated Press. President Joe Biden is facing a decline in support from black voters, according to a recent poll by the Associated Press NORC Center for Public Affairs Research. Biden's approval rating among black adults has dropped to 42%, and there is concern that this could impact his chances of winning a second term. This decline in support is particularly troubling as black voters played a crucial role in securing Biden's victory in the 2020 election. Biden will need to work hard to energize black voters in swing states such as Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. Young black voters in South Carolina have expressed their desire for Biden to prioritize their concerns and be more transparent about his promises. They also want him to focus on education issues, school safety, and the teacher shortage. Many voters also expressed concern about Biden's age and his handling of the economy. Biden's initial plan for student loan forgiveness was struck down by the Supreme Court, leaving many voters disappointed. Inflation remains a major concern among voters, despite recent signs of improvement in the economy. The interviews also revealed concerns about voting rights, abortion, and the overdose epidemic. Despite these concerns, many black voters still expressed their support for Biden, citing his efforts to address their concerns, such as diversifying the federal judiciary and government agencies. However, motivating voters who have seen little change in their circumstances may prove challenging for Biden. A new perk for some student loan borrowers, a 401k match. New York Times. Employers in the U.S. are starting to offer retirement savings contributions to employees who are unable to save in their 401k type plans due to student loan debt. This new benefit is made possible by legislation known as Secure 2.0, which aims to boost retirement savings. While it is not yet clear how many companies will offer this benefit, several large companies have recently introduced it to their employees. The move comes as millions of people have restarted federal student loan payments after a pause during the pandemic, leading to concerns about the financial strain on borrowers. Japan to introduce 6-month residency visa for digital nomads. Nikkei Asia. Japan plans to establish a new visa status that will make it easier for IT engineers and other workers for overseas companies to reside in the country. The new status will allow highly skilled workers to work in Japan on a teleworking basis for up to 6 months while enjoying sightseeing trips. The government hopes to attract workers and owners of consulting companies abroad, as well as YouTubers earning advertising fees from overseas companies. This move comes as telework has become widely practiced globally due to the COVID-19 pandemic. To be eligible for the new visa status, applicants must have an annual income equivalent to 10 million yen, $68,000, or more, be a citizen of one of 50 countries with visa waiver agreements with Japan, and have private health insurance. The program is expected to launch at the end of March. Sumitomo Mitsui Trust expands assets abroad on Middle East mandates. Nikkei Asia. Sumitomo Mitsui Trust Asset Management is attracting increasing mandates in the Middle East, which accounts for 90% of its assets under management from investors outside Japan. Sovereign wealth funds and institutional investors in the region make up the majority of the firm's roughly $30 billion of overseas assets. The company began attracting assets from outside Japan in 2012 and has since seen a surge in passively managed global equities and fixed income investments. Government to provide aid to refugees returning to Ukraine from abroad. Yahoo! The Ukrainian government has approved a resolution that will provide financial assistance to citizens who have returned from abroad and are currently unemployed. The assistance will be available for up to 6 months and aims to support families who are at risk of poverty. Eligible families include those who have returned to Ukraine after an extended stay abroad, as well as internally displaced families who have not been able to find work due to relocation. The payments will be tied to employment incentives, meaning recipients must either find a job or register at an employment center within 2 months of receiving assistance. Universities should want brilliant British minds, not dumbed-down foreign cash cows. Telegraph. An op-ed in the Telegraph argues that British universities are prioritizing international students over domestic applicants, resulting in discrimination against British youth. The author recounts stories of talented British students being rejected from top universities in favor of international students who can afford to pay higher fees. The op-ed also criticizes universities for focusing on financial gain rather than their core mission of educating students. The author argues that universities should be giving back to their students, many of whom have accumulated significant debt, rather than asking for donations. They also criticize the recent trend of universities admitting fewer domestic students in favor of international ones. The op-ed calls for an end to the funding model that relies on international student fees and prioritizes overseas applicants over British youth. The op-ed concludes by stating that many alumni are choosing to withhold donations due to their dissatisfaction with universities' actions. The author stands with British students and criticizes universities for prioritizing diversity over merit. They argue that universities should focus on educating the best and brightest British youth, rather than admitting wealthy international students. Scottish civil servants told they can work abroad for a month every year. Telegraph. The Scottish government has issued guidance to civil servants stating that they may be eligible to work from abroad for up to 4 weeks a year. The guidance, obtained under Freedom of Information, states that there must be a genuine requirement for the remote work. Previously, it was reported that the Scottish government had allowed 32 employees to work from other European countries or further afield for personal reasons. The government's hybrid working policy, introduced in April 2021, allows staff to work from a location other than their contractual work location as long as they are prepared to travel to the office at their own cost when required. Rules to ease for foreign students who want to call Australia home. The Sydney Morning Herald. The Australian government will remove a rule that prevents foreign students from receiving visas if they express a desire to settle in the country. The move is in line with a net reduction in overseas migration of 518,000, which was a record for Australia last year. The government hopes that the change will encourage talented individuals to study in the country, while also reducing the number of people applying for visas for work rather than education. The decision has been welcomed by the tertiary sector. Minister probes claims universities offer easier entry to non-UK students. Telegraph. The UK Department for Education is investigating claims that Russell Group universities are setting higher entry standards for UK students than for international applicants. An undercover investigation by the Sunday Times found that 15 Russell Group universities were offering international students one-year pathway courses with lower grade requirements. UK students are typically required to have A or A grades at A level, while foreign students were found to be able to gain entry to competitive degree courses with just C grades at GCSE. Universities have become increasingly dependent on income from overseas students as domestic fee income has fallen. Well, my dear viewers, it seems that President Biden is facing a bit of a challenge with his support from black voters. According to a recent poll, his approval rating among black adults has dropped to 42%. Now, that's not good news for old Joe, especially considering how crucial black voters were in securing his victory in the last election. So, what's the plan? Biden will need to work hard to energize black voters in swing states like Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. And what do these voters want? Well, they're calling for Biden to prioritize their concerns, be more transparent about his promises, and focus on education issues, school safety, and the teacher shortage. Oh, and they've also got some concerns about Biden's age and his handling of the economy. Tough crowd, huh? But that's not all, folks. In other news, it looks like some lucky student loan borrowers in the US might be getting a little extra perk. Employers are starting to offer retirement savings contributions to employees who are drowning in student loan debt. Talk about a win-win. This new benefit is made possible by legislation known as Secure 2.0, which aims to boost retirement savings. So, not only will these borrowers be chipping away at their student loans, but they'll also be saving for retirement. Now, that's what I call a smart financial move. And speaking of moves, Japan is planning to introduce a new visa status for digital nomads. That's right, folks, if you're an IT engineer or some other highly skilled worker for an overseas company, you might just be able to work in Japan on a teleworking basis for up to 6 months. And get this, you can even enjoy sightseeing trips while you're at it. Talk about the ultimate work-life balance. But don't pack your bags just yet, my friends, because there are a few requirements. You'll need to have an annual income of at least 10 million yen, that's about $68,000, be a citizen of one of 50 countries with visa waiver agreements with Japan, and have private health insurance. So, get those resumes ready and start practicing your konnichiwa. Now, let's talk money, shall we? Sumitomo Mitsui Trust Asset Management is making some big moves in the Middle East. They've been attracting more and more assets from investors in the region, with 90% of their assets under management coming from outside Japan. Sovereign wealth funds and institutional investors in the Middle East just can't get enough of them. Looks like Sumitomo Mitsui Trust is becoming quite the global player, my friends. And in some heartwarming news, the Ukrainian government is providing financial assistance to citizens who have returned from abroad and are currently unemployed. They'll be eligible for up to 6 months of support, which aims to help families at risk of poverty. It's always nice to see a government stepping up to support its people, isn't it? Now, let's talk education. An op-ed in the Telegraph is calling out British universities for prioritizing international students over domestic applicants. The author argues that talented British students are being rejected in favor of international students who can afford to pay higher fees. They also criticize universities for focusing on financial gain rather than their core mission of educating students. Ouch! Looks like someone's not happy with the state of British higher education. And speaking of unhappy, it seems that the UK Department for Education is investigating claims that some universities are setting higher entry standards for UK students than for international applicants. An undercover investigation found that international students were able to gain entry to competitive degree courses with lower grades than their UK counterparts. This is causing quite a stir, as universities have become increasingly dependent on income from overseas students. Looks like the competition for those international tuition dollars is getting fierce. Well, my dear viewers, it seems like we've covered quite a lot today. From President Biden's declining support among black voters to Japan's new visa status for digital nomads, there's certainly a lot to think about. But what do you think? Do you agree with the concerns of black voters? Should employers offer retirement savings contributions to student loan borrowers? Would you take advantage of Japan's new visa status? And what about those allegations of unfair treatment of UK students? I want to hear your thoughts, so don't be shy. Drop a comment and let me know what you're thinking. Until next time, stay curious, my friends. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.